Welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that is committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people throughout the world. And today we're so delighted to have Marina Galán. Marina is a three principles coach, mentor, and training professional working with individuals, groups, and organizations all over the world. She is also part of the effort bringing the three principles understanding to the Spanish-speaking community worldwide, and also serves as part of the 3PGC board. And with that, Marina, take it away.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for being here. First of all, first and foremost, I got a few messages from people asking me about the title of this webinar. Like, what? Are you sure that's what you want to call it? It sounds a little cryptic. But I can assure you, it's the simplest thing ever. And it goes back to very profound, ordinary experience that I had a few weeks ago. I was not at home. I was in Mexico City, staying at a friend's house, and I needed to give a class for Natasha's group early in the morning, and I had stayed up very, 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 very late the night before, partying with a friend that I hadn't seen in a very long time. And I was not in a good condition to give a webinar for Natasha's group, but there I was. So I had gone upstairs to see my friend who was having breakfast. And we had a really cool breakfast, kind of fast, a little bit, in a hurry. And as I was getting up the table, I was standing up from the table to go talk to Natasha's group. I saw the newspaper on the table. And when I looked at the newspaper, I felt a turmoil of thoughts coming into my head saying, my God, Marina, how long has it been since you read the paper? I mean, you should do this more often. It's important to be on top of things. If someone asked you, what's going on with the world, you would not be able to answer them truthfully. And so you see, only seeing the newspaper there triggered all this thinking in my head. So I am walking down the stairs, and my mind is going around and around and around this should around the newspaper. At the same time, my mind was saying, well, the newspapers are kind of disgusting lately, that you can't find very nice things in there. So yes, you should read them, but do you really want to read them? But you should, because you need to be on top of things. And anyway, I could feel all this happening in my head. And so anyway, I go downstairs, I sit down on the table, I turn on the computer, and there was a window next to where I was sitting. And I am, taking a couple of breaths, and then I am online talking to Natasha's people and trying to do my best. But as I was sitting there and I was getting in a more reflective state so that I could talk about what I was going to talk about, I was looking out the window, and every time I looked out the window, I could see this beautiful small fountain. It was made of rock, and it had this very soft gurgling thing, and the water was overflowing and it was trickling down, but it was the most beautiful sounding fountain I have ever encountered in my life, right? So every time I would turn around and I would see the fountain, and then behind the fountain, there's this like cliff, and there were tons of trees, and everything was green, and I could see all these shades of green around the fountain. And I would go back to the webinar, and then I would turn back to face the fountain, and all these wonderful tiny little colored birds were coming and drinking and flying away. And then another one, a yellow one, would come and drink a little bit, and it will fly away. And then a butterfly would flutter around. I don't know what you guys think, but I believe that the natural state of butterflies is drunkenness. I mean, look at them, right? They're just, they move so erratically. And I love the idea of such a beautiful animal living in a state of drunkenness and just fluttering around, and nobody really knows what's going on, and where they're going to land, and whether they're going to turn right or left. So the butterflies would come and they will land on the fountain and they would drink. And I was looking at the fountain, and suddenly I remembered the newspaper. And it was such a contrast. And so the question that appeared in my mind in that moment is, where is life? What do you really want to know? What do you really want to be on top of? What is actually important? How would you choose to live this day if you could choose? In the company of the newspaper or in the company of the fountain? And that took me back to an interview I saw that they were doing with Sadhguru. Do you guys know who Sadhguru is? Yes? Okay, they were doing an interview with Sadhguru. And so in this interview, Sadhguru was saying, imagine that one day you lose all your money, and so your mind says, I want to die. This is what you need to do. Cover your nose, stop breathing, and within 45 seconds, your system, your wisdom, your body will say, to hell with your money, I want to live. Now, imagine that your love affair falls to pieces and your mind says, I want to die. Check. Your mind will say, to hell with your love affair, I want to live. Yes, and so in this interview, Sadhguru keeps talking, and what he points to with absolute clarity and certainty is the most important thing that is happening right now in your life is life itself. And there can be many things going on, and financial challenges and family dynamics and Shakespeare happening in the office bathroom, people stabbing each other in the back. Anything can be happening. But that's just the ripples. That's just the content of our minds. That's not life itself. But we get so lost so easily. Right? I mean, all it took was seeing the newspaper to send me into a spin of shoulds and horror and self-judgment. And then the fountain was there. A reminder. A reminder. So I have a theory. I have never spoken about this publicly, but I am going to do this today. I have a theory that religions got it all wrong. It was not God created everything and then at the end created humans. I think it was the other way around. I think God created humans and then realized that we needed constant reminders. And so then he created everything else to constantly remind us who we are, where we're at, what is happening, what is going on. You know, and sometimes I am sitting here and I look out my window and I see the wind blowing and all the trees are going like this, you know, like, hey, remember, remember. You know, and I go outside and I take a walk with my dogs and hundreds of birds are, remember, remember. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I hear is birds reminding me, you're alive. You have been summoned here again today to participate, to collaborate, to share, to feel, to experience. Nothing is being asked of you except that, and that is inescapable. You don't have a choice, right? So your only duty is inescapable. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. Everything else, you're free to choose. And this takes me to a quote by Sydney Banks that says, when he speaks about level of consciousness, and he says there are infinite levels of consciousness, but a level of consciousness is just a way of understanding life. That's it. That's all it is. A way of understanding life. So you can be understanding life on the level of the newspaper. You can be understanding life on the level of the fountain and everything in between. And I am sure that, I mean, the fountain is not even needed. It's just a reminder. That's all it is. It's just, let's put it this way. It's just an invitation. So life is absolutely filled with invitations to truth. And then everything else that we make up are invitations to lostness. Politics are an invitation to lostness. Family dynamics are an invitation to lostness. Financial challenges are an invitation to lostness. Do you see what I'm saying? But we get to choose. There's just endless invitations. And when I say that creation is an invitation to truth, is a reminder of truth, It's like all of creation is just saying, come back, come back, come back. And you know how they say when you talk about news, suddenly you know you're in a dinner thing and somebody says, what are you talking about? And you say, oh, we're talking about, I don't know, Barack Obama and what happened when and they'll say, oh, that's old news. Yes, that's old news. I love the fact that Sydney Banks says that truth never gets old. It's always here, it's always present, but it never gets old. So you guys tell me, has the sunset ever gotten old? Has a raging storm coming in ever gotten old? Has the experience of falling in love ever gotten old? Has joy ever gotten old? And yet all our made-ups, all our concepts, all our thinking gets old so fast, doesn't it? Like so fast. And yet we develop these habits of thinking. So I'm going to tell you a story because you know I like getting personal and telling stories. Yes, sometimes. Okay. So this happened last weekend. A very good friend of mine, a very old friend of mine, we've known each other since he was 15 years old. And we dated when I was 18 years old and he was 21 for a couple of years. Okay. Now, this guy is an artist. He's a painter. Okay. I remember when we were dating, when we were living together, when we were very young, the level of drama that we lived in was insane. Like sometimes, Richie, trust me on this one. Some nights I would get home, I would work during the day and study at night. And then I would get home late at night, exhausted, and I would find him in his studio on the floor in a fetal position, sucking on his painting brushes. The frustration of creation and the expression of consciousness. Like I remember the level of drama that we lived in. And yes, we didn't have a cent. We were struggling financially horribly. And my family was not talking to me, you know, no words for 2 years. And I was feeling alone. And so everything was dramatic. Everything. Now, this guy and I broke up, but we've remained friends for forever. Every 4 or 5 years, he calls me up and we go have breakfast. Every time we go have breakfast, every single time, he tells me, this and this and this and this is happening in my life. Let's run away together. I have a new girlfriend and she wants to get married. Let's run away together. You know, 3 years later, I am getting married. Let's run away together before that happens. 2 years later, my wife wants to have a kid. Let's run away together before that happens. So you see, so this is the pattern. And it got old really fast. You know, like I know that every time I see him, no matter when it is, he's gonna tell me, this is happening in my life and this is happening in my life. Let's run away together. Last weekend was not the exception. Okay. So I am talking with this guy and he's telling me, about all the financial challenges that he's facing. And he's always here and he's divorced now and his relationship with his ex-wife is horrible. And it's horrible. And she doesn't let me see my kids. And I have a show to prepare in Paris. And now I have to fly to Paris and I have to paint. And she's upset that I am going to Paris and she thinks I have all this money, but I don't want to give it to her. She doesn't know that I don't have a cent and that I am staying at somebody else's house in Paris. And I am listening to this guy. And so he tells me at some point, let's run away together. And I say, the difference between you and me is that I have created a life that I don't need to run away from. I have created a life that I don't want to run away from. I love my life. And then he said, well, of course, look at where you live. You have green all around you and all these trees and da 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 da. You can hear the birds and the crickets at night. And, you just walk outside and there are horses everywhere. I mean, of course, you don't want to run away from your life. And so I told him, no, you're not understanding. The reason why I love my life and I don't need it or want to run away from it is because I have created a life where there is no drama. So he stopped and he got really quiet and he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? And I told him, well, I've known you since you were 15. You are now 55 years old. And every single time we have met, I have seen you, there is drama going on in your life. Now, I know, because I know you, I lived with you for 2 years when we were young. I know that you think that drama is necessary for an artist to create. And that is not true. So he looked at me and he was like, no. What are you talking about? It's not true. And I'm like, yes, you are convinced that the creation of the artist needs to come from the experience. And that's not true. And then I asked him the following question. So this is the question I am going to ask you guys as well, okay? Are you ready? I asked him, what would your life look like without drama? I swear to God, he went pale. He was white as a ghost. And he told me, that is the scariest thought I have ever thought in my life. Let me see. And then he said, but what about intensity? And I said, well, intensity, it has nothing to do with drama. So we started talking about experiences of intense bliss and intense loneliness and intense loss and grief, but without the drama, just recognizing the ordinariness of it. Is this making sense? Yes. And so I look at the newspaper and it's life plus drama, right? And I look at the fountain and it's just life. But this is happening in the world. Yes, this is happening in the world. This also is happening in the world. Where do you want your attention to be? And so I remembered reading and then watching a scene, reading on Gandhi biography, and then seeing this on the film that they did about his life. I remember the scene in which he is discussing with a group of people all the politics, and he's angry and he's upset and and then he says, "Is that understood?" And everyone says yes, and he says, "Okay, now leave me because I need to take care of important things. I need to go take care of the really important things." And the group of people leaves, and the camera follows him, and he goes to fix the leg of a goat that had broken its leg by himself. He goes tend to the goat. The really important things. What are the really important things in your lives? What do you give your attention to? What do you give value to? Truth never gets old. But then he reminds us again, the truth comes from within. You will never find it outside. So it's not that truth is in the newspaper, nor in the fountain. But what becomes alive in you when you allow yourself to be in the presence of the fountain. That is true. That is truth. And that's why it comes with such a beautiful, peaceful, calming, serene feeling. Just a reminder of truth. And what else does it tell us? In order to find the answer. I want you to listen deeply to this one, okay? In order to find the answer, you need to ignore. This is the word Sid uses. In order to find the answer, you need to ignore space, time, and matter. They will be there. They will be part of your experience. Just need to ignore them. A friend of mine was telling me the other day, she's very Catholic. And she loves the scripture and she loves citing the scripture. And she was telling me the other day, do you know that when Jesus is out in the desert, he sees the devil, but he never speaks to him? Not once. He doesn't speak to him. Isn't that a form of ignoring? And then I remember the words of Gangaji when she says, do not touch that thought. Right? Sid and everyone, they say, It's impossible to control your thinking. It's impossible to control your thoughts. They just pop in. They just appear out of nowhere. But don't touch that thought. And so I have gone back to my experience of the newspaper, and I have gone back to the experience of the fountain many, many times. And what I realized is looking at the newspaper triggered a tornado of thinking inside my head. Observing the fountain immediately took me to a state of no thought. We always have the choice. There's your free will. You always, always, always have the choice. And believe me, there's about 3,000 newspapers that live inside me. But there's also one fountain. Only one is needed. I would really like to open this up and hear what you guys are hearing and make this a little bit more interactive. Because it feels like all I have done for the last 34 minutes is justify the title of my webinar, which is true, but I hope that together with the justification of the title, there was some insight for you. Well, I'm hoping that, but please let me know.
Yeah, and everybody, if you want, you can raise your hand. And if you don't know where that is, it's usually at the bottom under the React button that you click on, and then there's a raise hand button. You know, Marina, I had a similar thing happen last year with that don't touch the thought. And what my inner guidance said was, don't give those thoughts the time of day. It was so forceful. Just, it was so beautiful. So it's very similar to what you were saying.
Yeah. Hey, Julie, how are you today?
Hi, I'm
Hey,
fine, thank you. And
wonderful.
thank you so much, Marina. That was very beautiful and very nice to listen to. I could definitely see the fountain and the newspaper. And I really relate to what you are sharing. Um, and I think that I can remember back some years ago or my life before where I was definitely addicted to drama in some way. I didn't know it and I didn't see it like that at all. I just thought that life was very dramatic. But when I look back at it now, I can see that I was addicted. And I remember I was addicted to drama. I thought that love relationships, for example, should be very dramatic to be, true or yeah. And yeah. Also worrying about other people is actually creating drama, for example. And I also thought that was, the right way to love people and all that. And I remember I had a longer phase, I think, when I began to understand life more from the inside out, and when my perception kind of shifted, where I felt almost I felt weird because, for example, I completely lost interest in my work. I'm a teacher, and I had a period where I suddenly didn't know how to go to work because suddenly I didn't go there to have drama. I didn't go there to have people telling me that I was good, or when the drama started to fall away, then I had a period where I kind of needed purpose somehow, and it calmed down. And today I have I would also say I live a life without drama and a life I don't want to run away from, and that's wonderful. And regained my joy of working and all that. But the question, or one thing I would like to hear you talk about, is that right now I'm completely into Claire Diamond, her books, and
Certainly, yes.
yeah, I've been listening a lot to her work, and I really enjoy it right now. And she talks a lot about the no self, that the self not existing, that the thing we think about as ourself is really an illusion and doesn't exist, which makes sense. And it also kind of is, I think, yeah, is because the self is also a drama thing. But I would just like to hear what you have about thoughts about that. Is the question, do you know what, does it make sense?
I think so. I don't know I don't know if I am understanding what you were trying to say, but
No.
so yes, the first thing that came to mind is a really cool poem by Wei Wu Wei. He writes haikus, and I really like haikus. They're simple and to the point, and they just go straight to your heart. They bypass the intellect. Anyway, Wei Wu Wei has this poem that begins with a rhetorical question asking, why are you unhappy? Because 99.9 of everything you say, think, and do is for yourself. And there isn't one. Isn't that beautiful? And simple.
Mm.
So here's how it looks to me. It looks to me that at some point in our early childhood, suddenly we discovered I don't know, but I think that before that, there is just experience. There is just joy, or there is just anger, or there's just pure experience. But then at some point, there's this sense of I. And then because I appears and it becomes the first filter through which we experience, then joy happens to I, and anger happens to I, and sadness happens to I, and abandonment happens to I. And so it's as if you were weaving a story around I, you see? And all that story is the story you tell yourself about who you are and what your life has been. And I remember one of my teachers asking me once, like, who were you before your story began? Who are you without your story? And he told me, how would you usually introduce yourself? And I was like, well, I am a Mexican woman, and I have 2 kids, and I live in Querétaro, and and so he started asking me, so if you didn't live in Querétaro, would you still be you? Yes. And if you didn't have 3 children, would you still be you? Yes. And if you change your name, would you still be you? Yes. And if that had not happened in your life when you were 7, would you still be you? Yes. So who are you? You see? So there's all these layers and layers and layers of identity that we have created around I and around experience. But what we fail to realize is that I is an experience. It is the ultimate experience, the ultimate illusion of experience. And so we have, you know how we have experiences and then we create identity around them? So the experience of I is the first one we create an identity around, and then we hang on to it, because if this is not me, then who am I? And this thing that we're holding on to is the very origin of the story, is the very origin of drama. It's also the very origin of all beautiful experiences, no? Because I fall in love. And I honestly love the idea that I fall in love and there's just not just love, unconditional, no, this is me. You know, so there's an enjoyment of I as well. But I is just an experience. And it's an experience that we often forget in the presence of truth. So when we are lost in a sunset, we lose the sense of I. There's just the sunset and connection with everything, right? And when I am lost observing the fountain and listening to it, and there's no sense of I. All barriers fall. All separation falls. And so I was talking to a friend last night, and we were having a really interesting discussion about truth and illusion and all these things. And so it was like, okay, so oneness is true, right? At a physical level, right? Physicists recognize oneness now. So, okay, so oneness is true. The illusion of separation is true. Separation cannot be true. So oneness is true. The experience of separation is true. The illusion of separation is true. But separation will never be true. If oneness is true, I cannot be true. I is just an experience. So when Sadhguru says, my mind says, I want to die, check. The system says, to hell with your thing, I want to live. But that's not the I that was speaking from the mind. That's not the I that wanted to die. That's not the I that is caught up in the drama. Do you see the difference, Julie? Is this helpful?
Very helpful. And yeah, and I totally, I'm there where I the feeling of really getting it and really knowing that it's true. And still it's so completely, it's difficult to grasp or,
Yeah.
and still it feels very true. And I just,
It's not difficult to grasp, it's impossible.
Exactly. But I also, right now or in these days, I have this feeling of it's almost too good to be true. That that feeling, that's when the simplicity kind of hits you and the beauty of it. Yeah. But it's beautiful. But thank you.
It's so ordinary, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why they say when you fall into truth, you rest. Right? There's this sense of resting. You can rest in truth. And so my friend, the painter, over the weekend, he was asking me, but what do you do when you get lost? And I was like, no, I stop doing. When I get lost, I stop doing. Because the doing is what's getting me lost in the first place. When I stop doing, I am giving I a rest, a vacation. You, illusion of I, go take a walk. We have important things to do. There's need for rest, in truth. I need to renounce I for a while. It'll come back. It's okay. Beautiful. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for that question. I loved it. My friend Divyesh.
Hi. Thanks.
Hey.
Thanks, Marina. And I see, I'm sorry, my voice is a bit, I don't know, but I see some familiar faces, and it's becoming like a little family, or rather a big family expanding. And I think you got me when you started talking about the news, and it took one flash of a look. And I'm in Italy on vacation at the moment, so not in Sydney. Otherwise, gen generally you see me in a pillow somewhere because of the timings. But this time, I've been able to come to these lovely, reasonable time. But it's only a concept anyway, when you wake up. So
Divyesh, you saying that you're an Italian holiday, that just triggered a turmoil of envy in my head.
yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because I mentioned that in another 3PGC. I think it was with our beloved Kathy Casey or somewhere. But I did mention that I've got this. I'm here. I was in Naples, so now it's Rome. And I was saying I was at this and that and this, some beautiful wherever I was. And then also I've got a photo sent every day of the little pup back in Sydney, the little pooch, and this and that. And somebody said, "Oh, how blessed is that life, right? Like you've got love there, and you've got a loving a holiday. It's all the abundance, and it was here. What is happening is like this morning and yesterday, I went to a few in old churches with frescoes and this and that, and all beautiful and everything. And I love history. I'm not Christian. I come from a Hindu and Jain background. It's nothing to do with religion, but it's to do with beauty, and it's to do with presence. And I sabotaged half of the time by looking at the iPhone and seeing the news in the US or even in Australia, or like I remember I entered a church and it had a Bernini. I don't know if everybody knows Bernini, but there was a Bernini sculpture of a lady reclining, Saint Cecilia or something. And I took one glance and I looked at this phone, like how I realized my own, when we talk about free will, I am one of the worst users of free will in my head I can think of. Like I will sabotage. This afternoon I went to a place known for its spaghetti carbonara. Now that's an ordinary thing here, right? I I looked at the iPhone and read the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Sydney Morning Herald, and every other thing. And then I proceeded to post every crap on Facebook, right? And I just realized really effing up your holiday, like, or whatever it is. And I said, but you've done this throughout your life in many ways. You put the experience, you put something in between the filter of thought, the filter of a habit, the filter, the pull of something. And then sorry, just to finish up quickly, when I'm in conversation, like yesterday, I went to a lovely place, and although they spoke limited English and I spoke very little Italian, we had a lovely conversation, and the lady said caro, like heart, see, like caro, I don't know. She said, caro, you have good feeling. Like just simple words, she said. You have good feeling. And she gave me a hug, the owner of the restaurant. And I realized one thing. I become present, and there's a loving feeling when I'm in conversation, and there's a self to true self conversation. But the minute I left her, and 5 minutes later, I entered my hotel or wherever I was, yeah, hotel, and a feeling of dread set in, a feeling of like a loneliness of some sort. And I was just wondering, I know it's in the feeling is a result of thought, but there was not, it was just a generalized dread and anxiety or something. And maybe I'm using all these filters of newspapers and iPhone scrolling and everything as a deterrent, as a distraction, or something or the other to feel good when what you said beautifully today, Marina, life is now, and that is feeling that's good itself, full stop. But you're using your distraction to get away from that as a delusion, and the reality comes when you're true self to true self, and the joy, you know, it's there. And how the hell are you always creating a distraction and then the dread? So I don't know whether there's a question, but I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Divyesh. I would love to see, who wants to take up Divyesh on a competition of who's the worst user of their free will.
There are many here.
I mean, Divyesh, come on.
Now,
But there is one thing you said that I want to pinpoint. Life itself is not only what is happening now.
Mm.
It is the most important thing that is happening now. That's it.
as not as opposed, but as part of it's not the only thing happening now, but it is the most important thing. Am I correct?
Yes, it is the most important thing that is happening now. So whatever is happening, if you take life away, what are you going to be left with? Right? So it is the most important thing that is happening to you now. It is the most important thing that is happening to each of us now, regardless of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. The ultimate fact is that you are alive. That is the ultimate fact. Now, considering possibility, the fact that you are alive now is miraculous in itself. Considering possibilities, universally speaking. The fact that you are alive right now is miraculous in itself. One of my kids was telling me, it took 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great grandparents for me to happen. And I was telling him, no, all of history needed to happen for you to be here today. All of it. The Big Bang needed to happen for you to be here today. Galaxies had to happen. Planets had to happen. Wars had to be fought. People had to fall in love. People had to be killed. For you to be here today. How dare you consider the experience of feeling as a stranger or feeling inadequate
Mm.
or feeling dreadful? How dare you? Do you see what I'm saying?
Beautifully put, Marie. I mean, it strikes home.
How dare we complain? You know, like, it's cold outside. How dare we?
You should have seen me this morning. Went to a church with the Caravaggio, and I said, "Oh, not another one."
Right? But when you start to consider truth, all of it had to happen. It's still happening. The universe is an event that is developing as we speak. It's not a place, it's an event. And you get to be part of that event. And you get to be a participant. And you get to be conscious of it, aware of it. You get to be a witness. And you get to affect it if you choose to. And if you don't choose to, you are still affecting it. You're not going to find yourself in the newspaper. You might find yourself in the fountain. We get so distracted. We get so confused. Man, you're alive. I don't know about you guys, but I think the easiest thing the universe could do would be like just enough, unplug it. And then everything would, yeah, gone. Like, I don't know how much energy is needed just to keep creation going, but I'm guessing it's a lot. You know, like I look out my window and I look at that tree and I think, well, life is actively, deliberately deciding to keep feeding that tree and keeping it alive, because it could choose not to. But the energy that it takes for that tree to stay alive the energy that it takes that it takes for me to remain, to not disappear. Now we are so loved. We are so respected. We are needed. We are summoned every second of every day. You're still here. And we go to sleep at night, certain that we will wake up in the morning and the world will be there. And nothing will have changed. You know, like, it's an act of faith going to sleep every night. It's an act of faith, because Do you have a certainty that the world will be there when you wake up? You know, or that you will wake up in the same place, or in the same reality of you. We don't know. We go to sleep and anything can happen. Again, Julie, it's a renunciation of I. Every night when we go to sleep, we are renouncing everything. And then people dare ask, but how do I let go? What do you mean? You let go every night of everything, everything. You already know how to do this. You've done it every single night of your life. You have given up everything. Isn't that cool? Suddenly realizing that we actually know how to give up and how to let go and how to renounce. We actually do. It's just that I doesn't know how to. We do, but I doesn't know. Yes,
Well,
Tom.
Marina, speaking of letting go, we're at the top of the hour. So thank you so much. And before we say goodbye, I just want to tell you about the next webinar. It'll be in 2 weeks, April 8th, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, and it'll be Judy Sedgman.
Wow, what a
Yeah.
treat.
So thank you so much, Marina. This has really been delightful. And if people want to unmute themselves and say something, now's the time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you